For this video, I want to talk to you about a game that's going to be releasing into beta later this year, and that game is Mythgard. Now, before you shake your head at me and say, hey, why are you doing this to me, Derek? Charmer, I don't need any more games in my life. I need to let you know up front, right out of the gate, this is not an ad. I'm not being paid to make this. This is a game I'm legitimately excited about. It is currently in alpha. I've had access to it. I've been playing it. I really enjoy it. The developers have given me the okay to not only stream it, but make YouTube content for it, and that's why I'm introducing it to you now, and I have already streamed it once on Twitch as well. The game Mythgard is being developed by Rhino Games. This is a small indie company. However, despite the fact that they're small, the people that are on the team are from Blizzard, they're from Google, they're from Gazillion, so the development team has a lot of experience, and it shows. I'm going to show it off a little bit later in the video, but there's a lot of quality of life features that already exist in the game. The game itself, despite being an alpha, is already playable on PC, playable on Android, playable on iOS, and even in a web browser, which I find really, really interesting. So Mythgard is a card game that is set in a modern era, but the premise is that mythological gods, creatures, beings, etc., are real, they exist, there's been a big conflict, and as a result, some of them are dead, some of them are missing, and in the modern times, we now have these demigods that are running around. Some of the mythological creatures are running around, but they're also coexisting alongside technology. To me, it feels very much like Shadowrun, if you've ever had experience with any of those games, and I enjoy that kind of setting. It's like high fantasy meets cyberpunk in many ways, which is right up my alley. I'm also a big mythological history nerd, so again, this is right up my alley. And the art, in my opinion, is really good. I'm going to put up some examples here. I'm also going to show some off later in the client as well, as I talk about some of those quality of life features, because I think that they've done some neat things regarding the art. But I think that the art is good, and I am enjoying the gameplay as well. It's not just about the setting. I think that there's a lot of promise, and I want to jump to a game now. I'm going to just go right into the game because as I talk about some of the mechanics later, it's not going to make sense unless you've actually seen how the game plays. So first we're going to walk through a game, and then I'm going to show off the interface after I show off a game, and then I'm going to talk about some of those quality of life features, and then at the end I'm going to talk about how you can get involved if you want to get involved early with the alpha and what to expect. So let's go to a game now. Now I've jumped into a game so that I can show you all of the gameplay basics. I'm not going to go through every mechanic, but at least give you the gist of how Mythgard works. The game I've jumped into is a gauntlet game. This is against the AI. Gauntlet is very much like Solo Arena if you're coming from the Elder Scrolls Legends, where you draft a deck and then you play against the AI, and based on the number of wins you get rewards. And I chose this because I want to talk through things and don't want to have to worry about turn timers. Now, this is the board, this is the game screen, and there's a lot going on. So right out of the gate, let's cover some of the basics. These are where your decks sit, and as you can see, if I mouse over them, it'll tell me how many cards are in the deck. Each deck is 40 cards traditionally in Mythgard. Now, we can also see down here, this is my health total and my player name. This is the health total of the opponent up here in the top right. These values here represent my mana for the turn. These here represent powers, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. And there's also this bar here, which is for gems, which I'll talk about in a moment. Now, the board itself has these like shapes that represent lanes. The lanes are where you place minions, and they matter because everything is positionally dependent. Minions, when they're on the board, can only attack positions that are adjacent to them, and that'll make more sense when I start playing some minions in a moment. But I did want to point out there are 7 lanes for each player on the board. Now, players also start the game with a path and a power. So the path is something that is going to alter your starting health sometimes, or alter effects that are available to you, and that's signified by these things on the left and the right of the board. On the left is my path. So right now I have Journey of Souls as my path. I get +5 starting life, and then I get this really cool effect where as minions hit my boneyard, that's like the discard pile or graveyard, I'll earn souls, and then I can get them to come back to my hand when I have 3 or more souls. You'll also see there's a keyword called Pursuit, and I think this is one of the really cool things about Mythgard. Pursuit is how the game balances going first versus going second. So if you go second, depending on your path, you get a bonus, but it's path specific. So this gives them some freedom for balancing going first versus going second in a number of different ways, and I think that's pretty unique. Now over here, this is my opponent's path, which is different. You can see that this is Turn of Seasons, and it does what you think it does. Every turn the season changes for my opponent. And what's really cool, and you'll kind of see it as we progress through the game, is that there's an actual animation. So right now, my opponent is in winter for their season, and so you can see the snow and the tree is bare. As their turns move forward, that will change and reflect both in the animation and in the abilities granted to my opponent. So that's the path portion. Now, independently, you also choose a power, and that's what these are here. Now, right now, me and my opponent are both using the same power, which is Smite, but think of these as like Hearthstone hero powers. There are a number of them, and they all have a cost, and when you activate them, they do something, but these are independent of your path. So when you are deck building in Mythgard, you pick a path and a power, and you can mix and match. And so there's a lot of flexibility, creativity that goes into deck building. Now, mana is what you use to spend on your cards, and each card has a cost, as we can see. That's what's in the top left here. I can double click any one of these cards to make it grow in size and kind of inspect it, right? So here, this is a 2-cost card, but that's not the only resource in the game. In order to play a card, you have to spend both mana, but then you also have to spend gems. And that's what this cost is up here. This is gems. Now, how do you get gems? And how do you get mana? Because you'll notice it's my turn and I have a 0. Well, instead of auto-incrementing, this game uses a resource system where you burn a card. And when you burn a card, you're actually picking a card and shuffling it back into your deck to get 1 mana and then 1 crystal based on the burn. So for example, again, if I look at this, this gem, this crystal right here, is what I will earn if I burn this card. And that's what we're going to go ahead and do right now. So I take it and I just drag it down. You can see it does this burn effect and goes back to my deck. That means I can draw it later, and if I draw it later, instead of being like the orangish color like this is, it'll be dark. You'll be able to visibly recognize if it's been burned before, and then that means it cannot be burned again. But this is how you earn resources. So again, now I have 1 mana and 1 crystal. You can only do this once per turn. If I try to do this again, it'll yell at me. But this is how you get your resources. And I think this is pretty cool because it is very similar to a game called The Spoils, if you ever played that. This is a way to take your cards and turn them into resources, but because the cards themselves are resources, you don't have to worry about things like mana flood or mana screw because you have control of it, right? So it's not like Magic where if you don't draw your lands, you're hosed. Every card you draw, unless it's one you've already burned before, has the opportunity to be a resource for you. So I think that's, again, really cool, really interesting. There is no limits on deck building, and when we go through the collection screen later, you'll see that there's a number of different colors, and you can mix and match those as well. You can have a monocolored deck, or you can run, decks that are big rainbows. As long as you put it in your deck, you can play it if you have the resources, right? So there is strategy involved with, you don't necessarily want too many colors because you then have to find them and burn them to play cards also of those colors, but you can mix and match. Now, another thing that I want to talk about real quick before we move on and take a turn is more like in-game interface quality of life features. So I've burned a card, and up here we can see that there's this, icon, and if I hover over it, it says Charmer burns, Seal of Exile, right? Tells me what the action was. Over here to the right, we can see there's an arrow here. If I click on this, this is an in-game deck tracker. So this will tell me what's left in my deck, and if I've already drawn it, for example, like Reckless Vulcanist is here, then it is grayed out. So again, kind of a cool feature already in the interface, like you would expect, but not necessarily in an alpha, and yet here it is. I'm going to go ahead and hit end turn so my opponent can take their turn because I've burned a card. I have nothing that I can play. the AI is going to take a moment. They burn a card as well. We'll see if they have anything that they can play. And they do. So they take a minion, they put it on the board, and again, they choose a lane. Now, when I hover over this, it tells me with the red here, all of the lanes that this creature can threaten. Because again, you can only attack adjacent areas. So there's the one direct across, and then there is left and to the right. Now, I want to be able to play a card again this turn. So I've got this that costs 2, but it also costs 1 red crystal. So if I wanted to play this, I would have to burn a red card, so I had that crystal available. I also have this Crusader and this Ghoul, but I need 2 orange crystals. So that means if I want to play either one of those, I need to burn one of those colors. So I'm going to take the Armageddon Angel here and burn this, because it costs 7, and I don't need that now. I can draw it later. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play this, and I'm going to play it here. Now, this means that I can attack this creature. This means this creature can attack mine. Also, heads up, they're called minions in game, but because I play so many card games, I'm going to call them minions, creatures, creeps, a number of different things. But they're called minions in game. But these can attack each other, and that means that they actually have to attack each other unless they have a keyword called Agile. Agile means you can ignore mandatory attacks, but if you can attack a minion in the game, then you must. So by putting this here, this means my opponent cannot attack me directly. They have to attack my minion. I'm going to go ahead and pass. Now again, I had talked about earlier, when the turns change, you can see that you'll get this cool animation for the turn of seasons. Now, it attacked me. It did the 1 damage, right? So now you can see that I am damaged here. And you can see here it says 2 of 3 health. So the interface again is like updating. And then my opponent has done something, which is play a lane enchantment. And this is another one of the things I love about the game, right? So card types in Mythgard are, you've got your spells, you've got your minions. There are artifacts, and those end up going around your portrait over here. They grant like permanent effects. And then there are lane enchantments. Now, lane enchantments are played on the position, and they augment that position. So here, if I mouse over this, it tells me that this lane is enchanted with the Orpheum of Horrors, and if the occupying minion dies, it deals 1 damage to all minions and all players. Now, here, now that I've played my minion last turn, I can attack, and you can see that I can attack any of these positions. Doesn't matter which one I attack, all of them will deal damage to my opponent. But I can attack any of them because there are no minions present. If this was here, for example, then I would have to attack it. But right now I can attack anything. Now you'll also notice that there are green on the left and the right. I can choose, instead of attacking, to take a move action, where I can move to the left or move to the right to reposition. And sometimes there is strategy involved with repositioning your minions. For example, positioning around lane enchantments can matter, or trying to go attack other minions or get away from other minions, right? So if instead of wanting to go face, I wanted to focus on board control, I could move this here so that I could attack this next turn. This particular minion, and this is why I played this one, also has an activated ability. That's what this little downward arrow means. And this says I can banish a minion in any boneyard to fully heal. So the downward arrow is something that when I click on, you'll see down here, I have an option. There are some minions in the game that have multiple options, and when that occurs, you'll see multiple options appear down here, and you choose the one according to the symbol on the card. But we're going to go ahead and use this just so I can show you how it works. So here I'm going to banish the minion in this boneyard, and instead I heal. Now that's my action, so now I can't attack and I can't move, but I've healed, and that's how I use the activated ability. Now, I can also still burn a card for the turn, and I know that I can still do that because this is orange. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to burn a red card now so that I get a red crystal. I go up to 3, and you can see this is now like a darkened color, right? It's charred because I've burned something. Just like over here, my opponent has burned something. Similarly, this is still orange here because I have not used my power for the turn, and if I wanted to, I could do so. But instead, I want to play a creature. Now, I'm going to play this Muse here. Muse has an Awaken ability. Think of that as like a summon ability in Legends, or comes into play ability for Magic. It's got divination. And again, anytime you hover over a card, if it has a keyword, it'll tell you what it is. Divination 3 means I look at the top 3 cards in my deck. I put one on top and the rest on bottom. So basically, I'm going to pick what I'm drawing next turn. And we're going to place this here because we want to try to block this. And let's go ahead and put the Howling Abysmal on top of my deck. And then I have no more actions, so again, I'm going to go ahead and end my turn. And again, each of the actions that have been taken, they kind of fill this up here, and I can scroll to go backwards and forwards in terms of the history of actions that are taken. So that is my opponent, my enemy, using their hero power to hit my health. And winning the game is what you think it is, right? You get the enemy's health to 0, you win the game. It's that straightforward. So attacking. Again, I have a minion that I can't attack, so I must attack it. So we'll go ahead and do that. Here I have freedom to do whatever I want, so we'll just pick this and attack. Now, the positioning does sometimes matter because there are keywords that deal with lane placement, right? Minions, for example, might have a keyword called focused, and that means you deal bonus damage if you're attacking the lane directly across, right? So even though these are empty, sometimes it does matter which one you pick, and it will also matter because of lane enchantments as well, right? If this lane enchantment said whenever a creature attacks it, it takes 1 damage, well then I don't want to attack that one. So there are moments where you have to pay attention to positioning and so on and so forth. And this is kind of the basics of Mythgard, right? Now, other things to note, when you zoom in here, you'll see there's like a magnifying glass. I can actually zoom in to see the full card art. This is something you can also do in the collection manager. I absolutely love this. You'll also see down here, you can see the artist's name. So if you're like, oh, I really like this art style, I really like this particular artist, you can hop down here, see who they are, look up other art that they have done. As I've said before, I'm kind of a fan of the overall art style. I'll show off some of my favorites when we get to the actual collection manager, but I do think this is a really cool, minor quality of life thing that they've added. But again, it's a digital card game. Make use of the digital space. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to provide high quality art, and credit to the artists. So anyway, this is the basics. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump to a part of the video where I can show off the interface and I can show off the collection manager and talk about some of the other quality of life features that the game provides. Because again, I think that for being in an alpha, there's a lot of really cool stuff that Mythgard is offering. I'm now at the interface for the game. I've just finished that gauntlet run, and I'm going to go ahead and just collect my rewards because I completed it. I get all 9 victories. So I hit collect reward. You'll see that I get some coins, and you'll also see that I get a seal, and I'll show you what those are for. I've earned myself a new power towards my collection, so this is another hero power, if you will, that I could choose during deck building. And I want to now showcase the different areas, right, of the interface. So if I go all the way back, this is what it looks like when you first sign in, and you'll notice right in the center of my screen, it gives me a notice of something that I should consider doing, and then it kind of fades up to the right so that you can see the art here. But we're going to go ahead and click claim because it's talking about level rewards. So this game has levels. As you play through, you earn XP and you will get rewards. So I'll go ahead and hit claim, and I earn some essence. Now, essence is your crafting resource. Coins are your free-to-play currency, and you can see that those are up here in the top right. Mithril is the premium currency that you would pay money for, and then this is where unopened packs that I have would exist. You're looking at kind of my player profile at the moment, right? So you can see this is my name, Charmer. This is the avatar I've picked. You can earn different ones through playing. Currently, I'm picking one of the doggos because the doggos are the best avatars, of course. But it tells me things like what my highest rank has ever been, career wins, season wins as far as on the ladder, so on and so forth. We see level rewards here, but you'll notice that there are 3 dots. So if I click on the first dot here, we can also see it tells me my collection. And then we can also see my match history. And since I'm right here, I want to show you one of the really cool quality of life features that already exists in Mythgard, right? Despite the fact that the game is in alpha, it has replays. So if I go to my match history here, there's this nice little eye, and I can click on it, and we're going to go right back to that Gauntlet game that I was just playing in, and I can replay the entire thing. And while I'm in here replaying, I can also pause it. I can speed it up so that it goes through at 3 times the speed if I want, potentially. And at any time that I pause it, I can also still double click on things so that I can review. I can still see the order that things are played in, right? Like I still have full access to the interface as if I was in the game. And this is a great way to come back and review your play, see if you made mistakes, or maybe your opponent did something and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. I'll let you see that. You can see what was in your opponent's hand this time around. It's just a really cool feature. And if you've played card games before, I'm sure that you have said, man, I really wish I had some replays. This game has them. Now, there are also missions, right? So again, I can go ahead and hit here and it'll go tell me what my missions are. Think of these as like your daily quests. Those are also accessible down here. So as you're looking at the menu, here is where I go to my profile. Missions is where I go to see what my daily quests are. There are also achievements, and you earn rewards as you complete the achievements as well. There is a social screen, but I don't have friends right now. But you'll notice that there's some cool things coming, like followers, following, guilds. They're still working on that part because, again, it is an alpha. But the fact that they are planning on including it, I think, is a great thing. We have decks, right? So right now I have most of the starter decks. You get most of the starter decks from playing through the story mode, and I'll show a little bit of that in a moment. There's also the collection screen and the store. We're going to start by going to the store because as I got those rewards, one of the things you saw pop up was a seal. And if you get 5 seals, you unlock a weekly chest, and the weekly chest will give you rewards. And like it sounds, you can do it once per week, but it is another free-to-play thing that you can do. You can open core packs here with your currency. So again, I'll go ahead and I'll buy one. Hooray! Right? So that's the free-to-play currency and how you buy packs. You can also buy core packs right now with Mithril, and if you're wondering about Mithril costs, well, here you go. You get $5.50 for $5, and then it kind of scales up from there. There's also some codes that you can redeem if you join the developers Discord, and there will be a link to that in the video description, and I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video. I know there's one core code in there that you can redeem, for example. But yeah, so Mithril. Now, the game is an alpha, but purchases are live. There will be a wipe when it goes to beta. However, all Mithril purchases you make right now will carry over, and if you make them during the alpha, you'll get a 10% increase when they move to the beta. So in other words, $22 is what you would get if you spend $20 on Mithril in the alpha, right? So you spend $20 and you get 2,500 Mithril. When it goes to the beta, then you'll get an extra 10% is what it is, right? So you would get 2,750 if you spent $20. Just wanted to mention, yes, there will be a wipe, but any money you spend will be carried over, and you'll get like a little bit of a bonus for supporting them early, right? A little bit of an incentive. Now, before I jump to the collection screen and go over all the stuff there, I'm going to go ahead and hit play so you can see the game modes. So these are all of the modes that are currently in Mythgard. There's the story. The story is like the tutorial, if you will. If you play through all of Chapter 1 of the story, you unlock all of those starter decks. You can see that I've already done all of this. The story does have stuff that they are adding, right? So like voiceovers are something that they added in a recent patch.
Magpire founder and CEO.
So just giving you a bit of an example here of what the story looks like in terms of presentation, art style.
We're focusing on...
Again, small indie company, but I'm really happy with all that I've seen thus far. Beyond the story, there are plenty of game modes, and some of these might immediately jump out at you because they're a bit unusual. Right out of the gate, you see Melee 2v2 constructed. That's right. Mythgard right now supports 2-on-2 matches. In this scenario, I'll go ahead and click on it because it kind of explains itself. It is you and another player, and you're taking your turns basically at the same time, side by side. Players control their own deck, hand, mana, boneyard, but you share life. So think like Two-Headed Giant and Magic. And there are 13 lanes per side as opposed to 7, where it's 6 per player, and then the center lane is shared. So I do think that it's pretty cool that they already support essentially multiplayer game modes. You do also have ranked constructed, casual, brawl. This is basically playing against the AI, but in constructed. Gauntlet, which is playing versus the AI in draft. Arena, which is playing against players, but in draft, and then puzzle modes. In the puzzle modes, I've done all the puzzles. I think they're a great way to learn mechanics about the game as well, but these are the game modes that currently exist as far as Mythgard goes. I really enjoy playing Gauntlet because if you start a Gauntlet game and for whatever reason you don't have time to finish it, because it's against the AI, they save your progress, even if you're mid-game. So if something comes up, you know, you spill your coffee, whatever, you can back out and then come back in on any device and pick up right where you left off. So maybe you start playing on PC, then you realize, oh, I got to go run this errand. You can pick it up on your phone, for example, because it is available on Android and iOS. Continue playing from there, or maybe you come back 2 days later and continue playing right mid-game. I think that's really, really neat as far as playing versus the AI and giving you some leverage with your time. Now, the last thing that I've been kind of dancing around is showing off the collection. Now, in the collection, again, portraits. There's also the paths and powers. So the grayed out ones are ones I have not yet unlocked. And then the lit up ones are ones that I have unlocked. You can zoom in on any of them as well. And as I said, when you're deck building, you pick a path and a power, but you pick them independently. So you can mix and match. In the collection, you also have opening packs. So we'll go ahead and open a pack. There are 4 rarities in Mythgard: common, uncommon, rare, and mythic. And in a pack, you always get at least 1 rare. Your rarity is signified by these icons up here, right? So gold is rare. The mythics are like this bright blue color. These like bronzish looking are your commons, and the silver are your uncommons. Now, one of the things that's interesting about Mythgard is that the rarity does affect your deck building. So you can put up to 4 commons in your deck, right? So you can see here I own 3, but I can put up to 4. That's what these symbols here mean. But for uncommons, you can only put up to 3 in your deck. Rares is 2, and mythics, so here's a mythic, 1. So all your mythics are basically like unique legendaries in the game, but all of your rarity directly scales in the deck building phase as well. Again, as a quick reminder, when you are deck building, you build a deck that is 40 cards, and every one of your cards also counts as your resource pool, so there's a lot that goes into it. When we're here in the collection screen, I can zoom in on any card, and as you can see here, there's also some lore. So the cards themselves potentially have flavor text, as we see here, but then there's also lore for the card as well. It'll also tell me who has done the art, and just like when I was in game, if I click on the magnifying glass, it'll tell me who does the art here and give me a zoomed in version of the game art, which I think is really cool. You also have crafting opportunities here as well. Other things, you can navigate by cost. You can navigate by card type. So again, you have minions, spells, lane enchantments, and artifacts. You can navigate by rarity. You can also filter by set, but as of right now, there is only the core set. You can turn on a crafting filter if you want to see cards yet to be crafted. You can also just filter to unowned cards versus owned cards as well. And then you'll notice down here that there are all of these little gem icons, these crystals. These are essentially the 6 colors in the game. Now, right now, in the alpha, there's only 5 available. This purple one, if I go ahead and I do this, it'll be empty, is going to be introduced soon. But again, you can mix and match any of these. And you can even run a deck that has, all 5 or all 6 colors, because your resource system is all about the colors and so on and so forth. In fact, as you can see right here, some cards will have a color, but they'll have multiple crystal or gem cost, right? Now, this card, if I were to burn it, will give me blue, right? Because this is essentially your burn crystal, but it costs both a blue and a yellow when I go to play it. So there are multicolored cards essentially already in the game as well, and this helps kind of build some faction identity, because there are factions in the game, and there's information about the factions that are available. Once you get into the Discord, you can talk to the devs about it. They've got a lot of really great resources about the game that they've made publicly available. Other fun things, right? So here I can search by new if I want to see new cards, right? So this is everything that I just opened in the pack that I opened. But I can also search by artist, which I think is really cool, right? So I'm starting to type the word Tatiana, because I know that's one of the artists. And so if I do this, you can see Tatiana is here. And if I go to filter by unowned, then I can also see some of the other amazing art that person has done as well. And again, it's just little quality of life features like that I think are doing a good job of putting Mythgard in a great position for when this launches. I'm very impressed with the fact that Mythgard already has the deck tracker in the game. They've already got replays in the game. They've got a really good search engine in the collection manager. Overall, I'm just really impressed with the number of quality of life features that already exist in this game, despite the fact that it's in alpha. One of the things I didn't mention is that they actually have a Twitch streaming overlay extension already, meaning that if you sync your Twitch account and then you stream the game to Twitch, despite the fact that it's in alpha, viewers can still hover over cards, see the zoomed in versions. Again, really nice feature. It's the sort of thing you expect for all card games, but the fact that they already have it done and the game is still in alpha just shows, a dedication to the quality of work that this small, indie dev team has. And I've been impressed. They've been very, very nice, kind, welcoming. They've answered a ton of questions. I encourage you, if you're interested in the game, join the Discord. In the video description, I'm going to put an invite link to the developer Discord. They gave me the okay to do so. So if you are wanting to try the game out, you can join the Discord. You can get access. It's available on Steam, on iOS, on Android. They can help you out. I'm also in the video description going to include a link to the game's website itself. And again, you can play it in a web browser, which still shocks me, but there it is. I'm also going to include a link to a third-party website that is MythDB, and it's run by somebody who's also on that Discord, but they have written some really good getting started guides. They've also written about the economy, because again, it is a free-to-play game, and they talk about rate of acquisition, things like that. The important part, however, is that the gameplay is fun, and I really enjoy it. I think that there is a good foundation in terms of the mechanics that they have used, the keywords that they've developed. I know I didn't show a lot of that off because this was meant to be an introduction, but there is a lot of room for growth here. I can really see a lot of different ways they could develop and have this go. I also really like the world, and because they're pulling from mythology, there's a lot of room to grow there, a lot of places they can explore. So just overall, I think that right now, for an alpha game from a small indie company, this just has a lot of promise, and I plan on streaming it at least a couple more times in the future. So again, if you're interested, join the Discord, try the game out. It's free to give it a go. And if you pay attention to my Twitter, for example, I'll let you know when I'm going to be streaming it again. But so far, I really dig Mythgard, and I wanted to just do a video to introduce it to you because it's in alpha. You've probably not heard of it before, but I think it is worth mentioning because it's a lot of fun. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.